thou that sleepest, arise from the dead.
Read the Bible, you'll find out that God's not too happy with what's going on around us.
Redeem the time, because the days are evil.
The Bible has not changed.
Boldly proclaim the restoration and preservation of Christian values in America.
Satan has brainwashed a whole nation.
As goes the church, so goes the nation.
Nobody's convicted of anything anymore.
And now, here's Last Call with your host, B.J. Edwards.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Or I like to say those who cannot remember the past or refuse to do so, put their head in the sand, are condemned to repeat it. First of all, I want to welcome our new listeners, the Newscaster Network, and thank you very much, Murray. And I'll get into a little detail what we're about. But first of all, because of where we try to broadcast, this disclaimer is necessary. You're about to listen to 2 hours of opinion and entertainment supplied by Last Call Radio. We're not doctors, lawyers, politicians, professional journalists, nor engine chiefs. Nor do either of us hold a doctorate degree in anything, not that that would make any difference. Our opinion, of course. We only ask that you as an individual and or corporately not take our statements or those that we voice from others personal, nor do we recommend that you act on them as if they are facts, although they might very well be just that, facts. But again, our opinion. You're not required to listen to, act on, or repeat anything that you hear today, and that any information or opinion we represent is meant for the good of the order and by no means intended to harm or threaten anyone. That's for our FBI friends and for our YouTube friends and yada, yada, yada. Again, welcome, Newscaster Network.
I'd like to add, do your own research.
That's true. That's true. Here's what we do, folks. Here's who we are. Every Saturday morning, live on Rumble, that's what we recommend at lastcallradio.live, and now the Newscaster Network, we have Christian Talk Radio with a sting where you can see the difference. We're Do Radio. I'd like to think that we are the equipment managers for the wannabe saints. Folks, we're here to light the candle. There's too much cursing the darkness, way too much. If you watch some of the other videos, you're going to hear about this is a huge problem and the end of the world's coming and you better listen. And then you're going to say, yeah, but I know even more about this. And then somebody else says, yeah, and I even know, what about this specific little thing over here? Hey, listen, if the second coming is coming, I'm not going to be at the bus stop looking at my watch, tapping my foot going, okay, Lord, where are you? When he comes, I'm going to be out in the field working, and I hope you're going to be beside us, okay? Myself, BJ, and Mr. Anderson, plus we have a panel of doers here, and we're going to hear from one of them this morning, Norm, when we talk about, well, what humanists are celebrating this month. We'll get into that shortly. Yeah, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. LGBT, yeah. If they want to teach schools to teach LGBT, start with Sodom and Gomorrah. They deny that, by the way, Mr. Anderson. They deny it. They deny it.
They denied it in Sodom, too.
Yeah. In our first segment of the show, we generally discuss the issues of the day, get into specifics, the do's, the don'ts, etc. And in this case, this entire month, the issues of the month, we just let you know that secular humanists are celebrating, especially in our schools. Yeah, your children are being taught this, whether you think so or not. LGBTQ History Month. This is book banning month. Did you know us conservatives ban books? You can't get books anywhere. Although you can. For the entire month of October, we're going to offer an option to that aberration. This morning, for example, we'll discuss the history. How do we get where we got to with regards to the LGBTQ History Month? How do we get to a crazy place like this, folks, when it comes to the sexually challenged crowd? And then in the second hour, we'll be talking with Arthur Schaper, an incredible doer from Mass Resistance, who's not only been in the battle, but he and his organization have been quite successful. Next week, we're going to interview former transgender David Arthur. If you don't know who David is and you've never heard him, wow, he's fully redeemed and fully informed. He's been there and done that. He's been the queen at the parades. If you don't know who David is, you're in for a treat, folks. And the last week of this month, we'll talk with Mr. George Carneal, the author of the book From Queer to Christ, and again, someone who has been there and done that and can arm you with the facts of the matter, which has destroyed many a child. Suicide rate among teens up. You know, we send them to government-run indoctrination centers where they teach them life has no meaning. Life has no meaning. Evolution is fact. Morals are relative. Multiculturalism, diversity. Man, not God, is the measure of all things. The state is your daddy, and you are a victim. But this government-run indoctrination center is here for your benefit. We'll help you. Yeah. Like I said, suicide rates are up. We're also going to tell you what the next step is. We're not here for complainers. We're here for doers. It's easy not to do, at least for the moment. That's until the problems you see are suddenly in there, and in there being your home, your children, your nieces, your nephews, your grandchildren. Oh, yeah. Think about how divided the family is right now. Think about that. Why is it that way? You want to destroy a nation? Destroy the family. As goes the family, so goes the church. As goes the church, so goes the nation. But if the family's broken, where's the church? And again, like I said earlier, on this podcast, we're more interested in doers than listeners, and looking for those who are willing to light the candles versus curse the darkness. We're appropriately labeled Christian talk radio with a sting, or conservative talk radio with a sting. Reality radio with the emphasis on real, no smoke, no mirrors, just the facts, ma'am. And to honor my Christian mother, my nom de plume is B.J. Edwards. And I came from a broken home. My father was an alcoholic, a womanizer, and an abuser. On Friday evenings, he used to come home from the clay factory, drunker than a skunk, get in an argument with my mother, and then beat her. And I wake up on Saturday morning, and I'd see, well, maybe a broken nose, some blood here and there, a limp, a finger or two crushed. And then Mom had me in church on Sunday. What an experience. What an experience. I use that, folks. I can feel things because of that. And I'm grateful for that. I would that it wouldn't have happened. I'm not saying I want that to have happened, but unfortunately, I'm not the only one out there like that. And the number of child abuse is getting worse and worse and worse and varied. The only way that's going to change is for you and I to do something about it, other than complain. And I'm a doer. I was at a Tea Party meeting the other night. Some great people there that are doing things, but wow, the city I live next door to, it might as well be living next door to San Francisco. These folks are awful. They're limiting the amount of time you can talk at a school board meeting or a city council meeting, and even what you can talk about. Door-to-door solicitation, they're taking care of that. The city council just passed a law that if your child is thinking that they're transgender or thinking that they're gay, and you're a psychologist, you cannot tell them that they may not be gay. You have to affirm their feelings. And then they get the operation. And then they wake up 10 years later and go, you know what? I made a horrible mistake. The United States of America, folks, majors in child abuse. From the schools to the homes, or the homes to the schools. We have to stop this. It's for the children, right? It's for the children. Part of what we do is we have headlines, and we can talk about those. But again, we're going to be talking to Norm Davis, and Norm's going to give us the history of why we're where we're at when it comes to the LGBTQ History Month celebration. Not to do is to do, folks. Here's some headlines. Neil Ferguson, without books, we would be barbarians. Actually, without one book, we are barbarians, aka 1984. Oops, I mean 2025. Why losing changes your brain more than winning? It does. It's pain. Pain is a teacher. Pain is a teacher. Drag queens outraged after rainbow crosswalk is obliterated by Governor DeSantis. Our pride is being erased. Oh, Lord. Heaven forbid. You're fired, FBI Director Patel brings consequences to entire team that spied on Republican senators. You know, the enemy does what they accuse us of doing. They're very good. They're very good. Obfuscating. And you know what? He who controls the information controls the world. They have the press. They have the press. You know, we need to do something about that, by the way. If you have any suggestions, I want to hear about that. How do we handle the press? New York AG, Lieutenant James indicted. Comey indicted. I don't think anything's going to happen there, folks. I think there's just letting a little air out of the balloon. Let you think that things are changing. Personal opinion. Inside Gaza peace plan. What happens next? That will be interesting. Pro-Hamas protesters in New York City on second anniversary of October 7th. Life has no meaning. Morals are relative. Man, not God, is a measure of all things. State your daddy and you're a victim. Israel Hamas agreed to a Gaza peace deal. Really like to see how that's going to turn out. And I love this. This is genius. This is what we do. We have a natural family month, and maybe we'll get into the description of that. But it's a positive. Instead of complaining, we promote a positive. Super Bowl. They're going to have a very unique halftime, which you would probably not agree with. So what happens? Instead of complaining, offer a positive alternative. Turning Point USA announces Super Bowl halftime show. I love this. I love this. You don't have to watch that. Watch what Turning Point is going to present. And then there was the University of Chattanooga, Tennessee Chattanooga delays recognition of Turning Point, citing designation as a hate group. Again, they accuse us of what they're doing. And this is cute too. I don't know whether you have that video, Mr. Anderson, the Augusta School Board, but the Augusta, Maine School Board, a resident addressed the school board. Did you get that video?
I have it.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and play that? This is what happened. What you see, half you believe. What you hear, nothing. Go ahead and play it.
I think I have the right one.
Okay, go ahead. This is crazy.
So now I'm about to show you guys how uncomfortable it is for these young girls.
Point of order.
We've asked that we use.
Oh, so wait. They're covered. You feel uncomfortable? Because that's what these young girls feel like when a boy walks into the locker room and starts unchanging in front of them. Yeah, you feel uncomfortable, right? Feel uncomfortable, huh? That's what these young girls feel like every time a young boy changes in front of them. You can look at me like that all you want. That's exactly how they feel. And you, Miss Muffy, oh, well, I don't know if I stand with girls or if I stand with my, with the... So you don't care how young girls feel? You don't care about the safety of young kids? What about what happened in Virginia with that boy that raped a young girl in a bathroom, then got sent to another school and did it again? What are we going to do when that happens here? How are you going to look that girl in the face and say, sorry, I didn't protect you? This is Maine's capital. We should be setting an example for the rest of the state. You know what example you guys are setting? That we do not care about the young girls in this state. You guys care about politics. Oh, we can't change it because it's not law. It got changed by an executive order by Biden. which is why we're here in the first place.
Absolutely love it. Let's take a break, Mr. Anderson, and then we'll bring Mr. Norm Davis on. How did we get to where we're celebrating LGBTQ History Month in our public schools?
I'm going to go ahead and play John F. Kennedy. I want you to listen carefully, friends, because this is what we're going to learn the hard way if we don't take heed to what honest men told us once upon a time in America.
Secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news.
Hello, hello, hello. I guess we're back. Mr. Anderson, we have Norm Davis, one of our panelists today. We have a group of panelists. They can vary from week to week, but they're all doers. They've been in the battle. They've got the scars, but they've also gotten some information that you don't. Here's two questions. What do you believe, and how do you know it's true? What do you believe, and how do you know it's true? Instead of attacking the enemy, and I love the positives against the negatives, the school board that you saw, but how do you know that? Where did you hear that? Might be a better question. Where did you hear that? Well, the schools told me that. How do you know it's true? Well, have you ever been to a school board meeting? Well, no. Oh, have you done any research on that? Well, no, but the schools that tell children that life has no meaning and morals are relative, that same school, say we need it. We have to have it. Do you know how your school compares to other schools? They say that they're above the other schools. Are they comparing themselves with the worst schools? How do you know that? Why and how did we get to the point where we're celebrating a nation founded on Christian principles, the laws of nature and nature's God, is now celebrating LGBTQ History Month? I'm not going to say the next word. How is it that we're doing that? Norm, come on in, brother. Come on down.
Thank you, sir. God bless you. I appreciate the opportunity to get to share some truth. I think last year I made a video about this LGBTQ ABC explosion. And so I want to look at the spiritual side of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through that video and we're going to pause it 5 or 6 times and talk about some different aspects of it. And then if y'all have any questions, well, like I said, we're going to break about every minute or so. And so if Mr. Anderson would go ahead and start the video and we'll go from there.
Before you do that, Mr. Anderson, Norm, a little bit of background.
Well, I've been a Christian counselor since oh my goodness, 1987 or so. So I've been doing that a long time. I've had jail ministries and, like I said, counseling for many years. About 8 or 9 years ago, I never was interested in politics, but
it's interested in you. It doesn't make any difference. It's interested in you.
It is. It is. So, and I've written Christian poetry for about 30 years, and I had kind of phased out of that, and the Lord directed me to get back into writing poetry again, but to write about what's going on in the country. So since then, I've written about 600-700 poems about what's going on in their country, and made several videos, and gotten pretty involved in what's happening, and I try to look at the spiritual side of things, of what's happening, and that's what I want to do with this particular video.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Mr. Anderson. Fire away.
For tuning in, I've got a question for you. Have you wondered why we have such an explosion in the LGBTQ ABC movement? Okay. This was unheard of just a few years ago. Now, we had a few gay people, but not like today. And of course, they want you to believe that they're just now all coming out of the closet. But I want us to look at the spiritual side of this. And to do that, we've got to start with creation itself and have the understanding of how God created us. See, first in the New Testament, in Colossians chapter 1, the Bible tells us that Jesus is the creator of all things. Everything that was created by him. And then also in John 14:6, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Now I want to focus in on this word truth. See, I believe that Jesus being the truth and our creator, I believe that he put within us a need for truth. Let's pause it right there, Mr. Anderson.
Is there a software package that was instilled in us, Mr. Norm?
Okay. Well, I want to talk about truth, because that's it is so important. And I believe that Christians today are clueless about the importance of truth. And we know that, when we choose not to accept truth or choose not to learn the truth, we will actually become blinded to the truth. Even when we see it, we can't recognize it. And if we don't change, the next stage of that is we'll begin to fight against truth. And if we still don't change, we will ultimately wind up with a reprobate or a debased mind. And the definition of that is a mind that has lost its ability to make a good decision. And that's where so many people are today, even Christians. And we know in Hosea 4:6 that God said, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. And I think we could probably insert the word, we're destroyed for a lack of truth. And I see truth and God as one and the same. Now, I want to share something with you that may stand the hair up on your head. But see, I am not only responsible for my sin, God also holds me accountable for the sin that I allow to go on in my community and in my country. And let me give you a little scripture on that. See, God told his people, he said, break down their altars. Now, see, those altars were in public places. In other words, the sin that's going on out there, I want you to go take care of it. Because what we know is that sin defiles the land. And here's what God told his people. He said, because you've not obeyed my voice, he said, I will not drive them out before you, but they shall become thorns in your sides, and their God shall be a snare unto you, which is where we are today. And we also know in Leviticus chapter 20, where people were sacrificing their kids, and it said, if the people of the land do not at all close their eyes to what's going on, in other words, okay, what they do over there doesn't bother me. But he said, if you ignore it and don't deal with it, he said, I will set my face against you and your clan. So again, God holds us accountable for what we allow to go on in the land. And the Bible also talks about, I will vomit you out of the land if you defile the land, if you let all this sin go. And see, if Christians understood this, then when we hear that there's a drag queen going to be at the library or at the school doing story hour, we would rise up and say, that is not going to happen because that defiles my community, that defiles my state, my country. That is not going to happen. But see, we're clueless about the truth about the way things at work. So knowing that how important that truth is, then how well do we need to know truth? Well, let me give you a couple of examples on that. We know that we've got the picture of Moses and Aaron, and God told Moses, he said, speak to the rock and it'll bring forth water. Now, Aaron was also aware of what God had told Moses. What did Moses do? He struck the rock, and he not only struck it once, he struck the rock twice. And God held Aaron accountable because Aaron did not stop Moses from striking the rock. Now, I don't know, I think the first thing that Aaron would have seen is Moses drawing back, with his staff and to hit it. And he probably hit it once, in a couple of seconds, he hit it again. And so God requires us to act swiftly with truth. And we also know that God had told his people with the Ark of the Covenant not to touch it. In other words, it had rings that put poles in it, and they were moving it. And Uzziah, the oxen stumbled, and he reached out to grab the ark, and God killed him over it. And see, both of these examples, I think both Uzziah and Aaron knew the truth of what God said, but they didn't have that truth so ingrained in them that they could act immediately. And if you look out, you're out in your yard and some kid's got a baseball bat drawn back to bust the windshield out of your car, you're going to holler immediately. And see, that's how much that we need to know the truth so that we can act quickly. And again, God holds us responsible for what we allow to go on. And see, the lack of truth is behind our fears, our anxieties, our depression, and a whole host of things. And so it's vital that Christians learn truth, learn it well enough that we can act immediately and not say, well, I think the Bible says something about that. You need to know what the Bible says and be able, again, to act immediately. So continue on, Mr. Anderson. We can also see in 1 Thessalonians 5:23 that Jesus created us as a three-part being. We have a spirit, we have a soul, and we have a physical body. See, our physical bodies relates to our environment. We breathe the air, drink the water. Our souls relate to other people, and our spirits relates to our spiritual father. Okay, Mr. Anderson, pause it there. Let's talk about the spiritual father for a minute. Again, we have a physical body that relates to our environment. We have a soul that relates to other people. We have a spirit that relates to our spiritual father. And what I want us to see is that every person on planet Earth has a spiritual father. And we also know that when the devil, as we know him now, held that rebellion in heaven, and God put him out along with a third of the angels. And at that point, the devil became the spiritual father to all those who followed him. And we also know that we are not born with God's spirit in us. We actually have the devil as our spiritual father, and there's some scriptures on that. But this is something that we're not talking about, and it's something that people need to be thinking about, and it can can bring us to a place of asking some questions. You know, who's your daddy? Who's your spiritual father? And we'll talk about that a little more in a minute. So go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
As disordered, immoral, depraved, shameful. Several other verses across the Old and New Testament say the same. The book of Genesis prescribes that a man must leave his parents and become one flesh with his wife. It is all exceedingly incontrovertibly clear, which is why Christian moral teaching on the subject of homosexual relationships has been unanimous for 2,000 years. And this is something that should matter to Chip and Joanna, since they claim to be Christians. And even if they weren't Christians, there would still be plenty of reasons to object to two men adopting children and to a show that promotes that kind of arrangement. Every child needs and deserves, and naturally has, a mother and a father. The mother and father united in marriage are the two pillars that the institution of the family is built upon. To intentionally deprive a child of one of these pillars is an act of unspeakable evil. And this used to be widely understood, which is why gay adoption was illegal nearly everywhere in the country up until just a few years ago. The homosexual act is condemned in Romans 1:26, 1.
Last call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
And so forth. Our soul, which is our mind, will, and emotions, our soul needs love, and we need connections with others. And I believe that our spirits need truth. And listen, truth is the balancing agent that we need in order for us to function as God created us to function. Now, let's take a closer look at God's plan for us. See, God's plan was for His Spirit to live within our spirit, inside of us, and then He would have access to our minds, our will, and our emotions. And see, God's plan was to teach our mind, direct our will, and control our emotions, kind of keep us balanced, okay? And so, as God gave us information from within into our minds, the information to make good decisions. That was His plan. Now, this is very much like instinct in the animal kingdom. What does instinct in the animal kingdom do? Well, it tells the animals what they need to do, how to do it, and when to do it. Everything that they need to have a great quality of life was put inside of them by God. Now, of course, God gives us a choice as to whether, we choose His Spirit to live inside of us. And again, that's another discussion, I'll say, for another day. You can find that in our 40 Days and 40 Nights devotions under the spiritual side, personal moments. Now, when God puts good information into our minds, or truth, our wills, which is our decision-making process, our wills then decides whether to follow God's instructions or not. Now, if we follow God's directions, which is truth, our emotions will stay balanced, okay? It is our bad decisions that creates emotional extremes, okay? Out of balance emotions on one side will lead to suicide, and then on the high side, many times it just leads to more bad decisions, which then leads to more ups and downs. This all starts, now listen, this all starts from a life.
Norm, to the normal listener,
Okay.
This is almost doctorate level in terms of what you're talking about.
Okay.
We were presented with a situation where sexual deviancy was being asked for, individually and on a corporate basis, on a national basis. When that question was asked, we have a struggle, we have a battle. And in that battle, by the way, is something called, we don't want to offend anyone. We're taught to do that. We're taught to love, right? The Bible says, love your neighbor. So how can you possibly fighting the spiritual devil and man's pressures? How should we have stopped this? What should we have done early on? What do you see that looking like?
Well, that goes back to the family, which I'm going to cover here a few minutes in the video. The family failed to follow the instructions that God gave, in Deuteronomy chapter 6 to, teach them diligently to your children. And this whole thing, again, can be traced back to the failure of the family.
Okay.
But I think the way we battle it now is with truth. And, we've got to understand the truth about how we were created, what was God's plan, and we've got to understand the importance, of truth and how it affects, how truth affects the world. But what I wanted to say here about these emotions, again, I hope people are understanding that God wants to give us truth out of his word. We take that truth and make decisions from it. But when we don't, and when we make good decisions, we stay balanced emotionally. Okay? But when we don't have the truth, we're not going to make good decisions. And then that creates the highs and lows emotionally. And of course, what we do now is we try to medicate and fix a spiritual problem with the medication. And we call these highs and lows now, we call them bipolar. In other words, you've got an issue here of bipolar when the true issue, the spiritual issue, is that you've denied truth and you haven't applied truth to your life, which has created these emotionals of highs and lows. So that's and it's the same with depression. So depression is a spiritual issue. And depression is a built-in mechanism by God that says, hey, Norm, hey, BJ, you've got some issues you're not happy with. That's what's creating the depression. And when I had I've had lots of people coming in for counseling that, was on all kinds of antidepressant drugs. And I'm not a doctor, so I didn't say get off of it, but I said, let's deal with the things you're unhappy about. And then you can begin to wean yourself off of the depression. But we try to treat all these spiritual issues with some kind of a pill. It doesn't work.
Yeah, so, we allow these things to happen, and then we treat the symptoms.
Right.
That's where we are in our X nation.
Right.
And monetarily wise, we all, I forget how many folks are permanently have issues, mental or physical, and we ask for that. We have don't worry about this, don't worry about doing that. We have a drug for that. We have something that'll fix it.
Yeah.
And you got there because you didn't follow the rules to begin with.
Right.
So we'll just RX you up here and you'll be fine. It's going to cost you a little bit of money and it's going to do some funny things to you. And your children may or may not commit suicide, but don't worry about it. Think about all the other ones that we're helping. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Anderson. I'm going to be quiet till we finish up and then we'll talk some more. Lack of truth. And again, truth is the balancing agent that we need, okay, in order to function properly. Now, again, as truth goes down, extremes go up in our emotions and in our decisions that we make. Now, keeping all this in mind, I want us to look at something else. See, God being a God of love, he created us with a need for love. And I believe that this need is the most powerful force in the universe outside of God himself. And this need inside of us is what drives all behavior until we figure out that the only way to fulfill this need is in a personal relationship with our Creator. But until we discover this, we are constantly looking for something to fulfill this need. And then when we break this need down, this need, we find a need to be significant or important. We have a need to be accepted by others, and we have a need to be a part of something, okay? The truth is, all of these needs are already met if we have that personal relationship with our Creator. But if we don't have that, we will always be looking for something to meet that enormous need. And people, listen, will try anything that they think that will fulfill that hole that is within us, that's on the inside. And as our country and our people have moved further and further away from truth, the more extreme things people will try to meet the need. That brings me back to the original question, why the explosion in the LGBTQ movement? Evil people simply convince people that don't know truth that this will fulfill the need that is within them. And they make these vulnerable people feel important, they make them feel accepted, and they make them feel a part of a movement, which is the need that God put within them. And the problem is that it does not fulfill their need. And that's why they have to do more and more extreme things like changing genders and cutting off body parts. And our government is going along with it, okay? Going along with this evil. And this will not work. So the next step is something even more evil. We move from one evil to the next, and it always gets worse. And remember also, truth, as truth goes down, extremes go up. And it is easy for us to watch all this, and on the news there's something, extreme every night that we turn on the TV. And we need to, and we're very critical. But let me show you how all this started. It started with the family not following God's instructions about teaching their kids in godly teachings, which is truth. And this has led to a dysfunctional family, a weak church, and a corrupt government. And we need to stop pointing our fingers at others and look in the mirror. And pastors across our great nation that God blessed us with should be ashamed, for many of them have accepted in their churches what God calls an abomination. And many have stopped preaching truth, and they're just preaching love and prosperity. And let me tell you, prosperity without repentance just leads to a host of sins of pride and self-reliance and self-indulgence and self-dependency and a whole host of other things. But always remember, as truth goes down, extremism goes up. And truth is a must for our lives if we are to live as God wanted his children to live. And this extremism shows up as in different ways, but one way is a lack of fear in areas that we should be afraid of, like our $34 trillion debt, our open borders, and we should be afraid of our education system now and our justice system that's out of control, and every other issue that's out of control. Now, people with truth are balanced in their fear of these things. And people without truth are afraid of things that they should not be afraid of, like climate change. And see, God created this world, and God will sustain this world. You can count on that. The other night I saw Tucker Carlson. He did a great talk about truth, and you need to watch that if you can find it. But Tucker said that truth will give us the boldness and the what we need to be able to stand up and to change this world. And remember, Jesus said, know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Okay, this is very, very important. Okay, another example of extremism is how we reacted to COVID with all these masks and shutdowns in schools and churches, and it was just crazy. So without truth, everything will be handled in an extreme manner. Okay, let's pray that we get back to truth. Till next time, God.
Let's take a break, Mr. Anderson. When we come back, we'll open the chat up And I've got a couple thoughts myself. B.J. Edwards, along Mr. Anderson, this is your last call.
Last call with B.J. Edwards. Real talk about real life.
And remember, second hour, Arthur Schaper will be with us, Mass Resistance. What do we do in terms of these symptoms that we've created out here? And Norm, as you're speaking, I'm thinking social challenges are always spiritually driven. And the family is the key, because we're not educating our children in the home. We're sending them off to government-run indoctrination centers. Then they send us back little Romans. That in itself is insane, and we're seeing the results of that. And you remember the guy in Las Vegas that was on the 18th floor or whatever, shooting everybody. No father was in prison, struggled with self-identity, tried sports, tried sex, tried drugs, tried gambling. Nothing worked. So he ended his life in a rather big way. But I mean, the children have those kind of problems, folks. The family, as goes the family, so goes the church. As goes the church, so goes the nation. We are where we are. Norm, real quick, and then I want to bring Martin in and maybe Betty.
Well, a couple of things there. I talked about the instinct in the animal kingdom.
Yes, sir.
Which is the role God wants to play in us. But what I want people to think about, now, my wife feeds hummingbirds, and we know that these hummingbirds fly about 6,000 miles to South America to spend the winter.
Whoa.
And next spring, listen to this, BJ, next spring, the hummingbirds I feed this year will come back to my house next spring. Now, that's God in the hummingbird in the form of instinct. But what I want people to think about the quality of life that hummingbird has, because he has God's Spirit in him. He's in South America this winter with an abundance of food, warm weather. If he stayed in Kentucky or Ohio where you are, he'd freeze to death and starve to death. But because God has put his instinct in him, then he has that great quality of life, which is exactly what God wants for us.
Have the hummingbirds been vaccinated? I mean, if they're going to cross borders, don't they?
Yeah, they've got a passport too, I think. They actually attach themselves to geese that's flying south.
And they're smart. Betty, go ahead, please.
They're smart. Yeah.
Hey, you're nailing it there, Mr. Norm. And it's sad that all this abomination to God happened on our watch.
Yes.
That includes me, Yep. So the New Testament says homosexual is a shameful lust, a shameful act, abandonment of natural relations, wrongdoing, sexual immorality, and perversion. So God has it throughout the Bible that this is wrong. And despite the attempts of some to downplay these verses, the Bible could not be clearer that homosexual is a sin against God. Then homosexual is not the cause of society decline, but it is a symptom of it. It is the result of people making themselves the final authority. The downward spiral begins with denying God. Denying God has absolute authority over his creation. We need to start praising our Creator and thanking him. It is marriage is between man and woman, not two men and two women. So the result of society's rejections of God's rule in their lives is that God gives them over in sinful desire of their heart to sexual impurity for the degrading of their body with one another. People, you got to realize you're degrading your body. This is a gift. We are in the image of God, and when you degrade your body, you're harming God. They exchange the truth about God for a lie and worship and serve created things rather than the Creator. Because of this, God gives them over to shameful lust. Even their women exchange natural sexual relations for unnatural way. In the same way, the men also abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. Men committed shameful acts with other men and received in themselves the due penalty for their error. The phrase God gave them over means that when we insist on shaking our fist at God, he finally lets us have the perversion we demand, and that is a judgment in itself. Homosexual behavior is a result of ignoring God and trying to create our own truth. When we defy God's clear instruction, we reap the due penalty of our disobedience. The good news is that homosexual is not the unpardonable sin. It is forgivable, just like greed, theft, murder. They're forgivable. So repent and turn your life to Jesus. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. It's amazing. You will not be empty. Give your life to Jesus. That's all I can say. You must be born again, repent, and ask for forgiveness, and give your life to Jesus. It's the only way.
Martin? Are you with us, brother?
I am. I'm sorry, BJ. I'm celebrating Pride History Month.
I'm sorry we interrupted you. Go. Be quick then. Be quick then. Yeah.
Sorry. Betty hit it right on the mark. And we must remember, I got a copy of George Carneal's book.
Yes.
Please, everybody who's watching Last Call right now, tune in a couple weeks when the author of this book comes and is interviewed by BJ. I happen to know George Carneal. I drove down to Clarksville, Tennessee, and met with him personally. That's what Busman does. He gets the truth, and that's what we report on the Busman report, where the truth will prevail. And I just want to say that I'm so grateful for Ephesians 2, because the Apostle Paul says this Last Call, that Paul's talking to believers who are following Jesus Christ. Guess what he names as one of the things that these new believers once were. It's in Ephesians chapter 2, if you'd like to check it. Homosexuality, of which you once were, past tense. So it's awesome, the transformation that God does. Yes, God wants to transform you. Romans chapter 12, verses 1 to 4. Read those verses. It's the renewing of your mind, where you take biblical information and you replace the biblical information with the old self operating system of it's all about me. George Carneal and David Arthur, who will be on Last Call with BJ Edwards, can tell you from personal experience that those two things are true. Now, I can tell you, I haven't talked to George in a while. George, contact me. You have my personal number. Please contact me. I'd love to see you, talk to you again. George, from the last, and you'll read about it in his book, and it's a short read, that he's still attracted to males. He's still attracted to males. So, but he's open and he says this. Now, so that'll get you into the discussion. Well, is he Christian, Buskman? Well, talk to George. I did. Let him convince you of that answer. And then I wanted to get back to when you opened up the program, BJ, you talked about what do we do with the press? Remember that question, BJ?
Yeah.
What do we do about the press? This is what we do about the press, Last Call. Number one, we hold them accountable. When we see that they are lying to us, we call them out. We send emails. We go to the studios, whatever we have to do. We with kindness and gentleness, we talk to the producers of that content. We can do that, or you can do like what BJ Edwards did and Martin Alexander did, Buskman. We do our own journalism.
Mm-hmm.
We start our own format of news programming.
We offer an alternative. Thanks, Martin. Norm, we're going to go to a 2-minute warning. Can you bring us back home
right now?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's we've got to understand, again, how God created us, our needs. We've got to understand the importance of truth. We've got to learn truth. And again, most Christians don't. They think they get enough on Sunday morning, but again, just like I said, God holds us accountable for what we allow to go on in our nation and in our communities. And as we can see there in several accounts, in the Bible. So, but we just got to keep truth, and keep pounding it and talking about it. And that's the only answer.
Start in the home, but do not stop it in the home. Bring your child up 6, 7 years old, and then you send them off to someplace. That's going to be a problem. They're going to learn other things, and they're not going to question you about them. They're not going to tell you about them, and that's going to get reinforced by man. Listen, sin starts with S, and sugar starts with S, and they both seem very, very sweet. Actually, they both are sweet, or seemingly so, but the results aren't necessarily what you're looking for, because there's some form of a cancer that's behind all that sweetness, and it could be spiritual or it can be physical, but it's there, and not necessarily tomorrow or even a week or a month from then. It could be years out. And you acquire a taste. Martin brought up something very important. You acquire a taste for that sugar, and you never quite get over that taste, because it's always in the back of your mind. Boy, that sure was sweet. I think we got a 2-minute warning coming up, and then I can't wait to get to Arthur. Oh man, he's a doer, folks. He's lighting some candles out there. BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. Your last call. Thank you very much, Norm.
By the way, typically speaking, the more you have to advertise something, the worse it is for you. Like the advertising budget of Coke. I guess there's no real marketing for cocaine. That doesn't mean it's good for you, but it does poke a hole in my theory. But the advertising budget for Coca-Cola or McDonald's, it's huge, and those things are really bad for you. The advertising budget for your local regenerative grass-fed beef butcher, they don't do any advertising because it's just like good for you, and people are drawn to it because it's actually valuable. Typically, truth doesn't have a lot of like billions of dollars sent to it. Like whatever advertising budget like LGBTQ has, and I know, like whatever, hard to follow the paper trail back to the Soros Foundation, but you eventually get there. They pay a lot of money to push this boys can be girls bullshit. They need a lot of money because it's not self-evident truth. It's actually a self-evident falsehood. Now, what's the advertising budget in terms of money and like intentional, you have to force people to say this? What's the advertising budget for gravity? Nah, not much. People are just like, yeah, it's there. You don't have to pay us to convince other people to believe it. So I'm just saying, why is Netanyahu
keeping you informed? This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
Second hour, Last Call Radio Live, where you can see the difference. We like to bring on doers in our second hour, and we're going to have Arthur Schaper come in with us, an incredible young man. Before I bring him on, just to kind of set it up, laws built on the foundation of feelings are laws that are soon to be washed away by the waves of public opinion. Then to proceed to once again build a nation's foundation on feelings as versus natural laws is mere folly and a recipe for a nation's demise. I have a headline from Canada. Sodom and Gomorrah in Quebec. Gay throuple adopt child with government approval. Feelings, folks. They've approved its first adoption by a polyamorous trio, many loves polyamorous, a throuple granting 3 men 3 men legal recognition as parents of a 3-year-old girl. I really don't have to go any further. A child needs their biological mother, female, biological father, male. They need them. And when you remove them from the equation or you warp it, you're going to have problems. This month, there are many schools, unfortunately, that are celebrating LGBTQ History Month. We're at the point where, what can you do? What can you do? Arthur Schaper, come on down, brother. I want to talk to you this morning. Mass resistance.
All right.
What can we do, Arthur? It's just too far gone. They've got all the cards. They've got all the players. I mean, what can we do, Arthur?
You know, we hear this argument all the time. Look at the gay lobby. They've won everything. Look at the trans lobby. They've won everything. But no, they haven't won the truth. Therefore, they haven't won the argument. What they did is they took over major institutions. They took levers of power to force this perverse agenda on everybody. And now you're seeing a widespread rebellion against it. There's something at the core of many Americans, no matter how blithely or how liberal they may be when it comes to people's private conduct. People don't like their liberty being infringed. They don't like any ideology being forced upon them. And that's exactly what's happened with this LGBT cult. This sodomy cross-dressing cult forces its perversion on everybody. It's not live and let live. It's we live and you have to live with it or you don't get to live at all. And this is manifest in the cancel culture, the relentless lawsuits, the violence. Look at the mass murders that we now see committed by trans activists and their so-called allies. This is a violent, destructive agenda. I noticed a lot of your previous speakers, they mentioned biblical sources and biblical values. You can go all the way back to Genesis 19. When homosexuality was permitted, it became pervasive and then it became punitive. And you saw homosexuals surrounding Lot's house, young and old, showing that kids are abused, kids are groomed, kids are incorporated into this perversion, and they commit crimes against others as well. I got a window into this when I was at the Redlands Unified School District school board meeting 2 months ago. You saw kids engaging in the most hostile, despicable acts because they have been groomed and pervertedly indoctrinated into this destructive agenda. We have to say no to it. Now you say, what do we do about it? Well, that's where mass resistance comes in. We have been fighting this perversion on full cylinders for over 30 years. We have called out the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about this perverse agenda. We even have an entire book. It's called The Health Hazards of Homosexuality. This is an essential tome if you want to get all the facts necessary to fight this destructive agenda. You have to tell the truth. It's a destructive behavior. It's a misuse of organs. It spreads venereal disease. It's a dehumanizing set of behaviors. The things that they do to each other are unseemly. This is mentioned not just in the biblical record, but you find numerous studies on this, many of which we've compiled here. I am not disputing or dismissing the essential importance that children need their mom and their dad. That is absolutely the case. The only issue is that there's a limit to that argument because a lot of homosexuals will say, well, we don't want to have kids or we just want to get married. No, the very institution itself cannot be undone. It cannot be redefined to normalize a perversion. Speaking of which, mass resistance, we have started the larger discussion. Earlier this year, we introduced resolutions against Obergefell v. Hodges. That was the travesty of a Supreme Court ruling from 2015, which imposed same-sex marriage on the entire country, invalidating, I believe, 38 states which had passed constitutional amendments or had passed laws clearly defining, affirming the natural definition of marriage. We are calling on legislatures to call on the Supreme Court. They need to review this decision and they need to reverse it. We also, just on a side note, there was a great case before the Supreme Court earlier this week. It is Childs versus Salazar. This is legislation that very likely will strike down every conversion therapy ban around the country. They're looking for broad relief, as they should. This is a classic infringement of the First Amendment. Individuals who struggle with same-sex attraction or identity dysphoria should not be precluded from seeking help. This is true for adults as well as for children. The Solicitor General for Colorado was caught flat-footed numerous times during her oral arguments. She claimed that there are no studies which show that reparative or restorative therapy works. That is a lie. There are plenty of studies that show that it does work. The notion that people are born gay or born in the wrong body is nonsensical. There is no evidence for this. God bless Justice Alito. He asked a very stunning question. Isn't it true that the medical consensus has gotten it wrong in the past? For example, you had Clara versus Bell, or one of the names in those court case was Bell. Oliver Wendell Holmes said it was okay to sterilize individuals with mental retardation issues. But then the medical consensus realized that, well, this is immoral and unethical and certainly unnecessary. The medical industry has been ideologically captured to push this nonsense that homosexuality is innate or that transgenderism is normal. No, none of it is. These were recognized as destructive behaviors, mental illnesses, aberrations, and it is appropriate for us to stand our ground and tell the truth about this. Mass resistance has never shied away from telling the truth entirely about this agenda. That's how you win. We speak the truth at school board meetings. We've spoken the truth in legislative hearings. We organize local parents and other citizen activists to fight back to clean out the schools, get rid of bad curriculum, get rid of bad staff. We have shut down drag queen story hour programs. We have stopped so-called non-discrimination ordinances. What it takes is an organizing for action. What it takes is a true restoration of what community organizing and civil rights activism looks like. It isn't you don't have a civil right to abuse your body with the same sex, but you do have a right to ensure that the Bill of Rights, our natural rights, are respected and restored, and nobody has a right to take those away. That's what mass resistance does, and we've continued to have a good record of winning on these fights.
Art, we like to equip our audience. You showed a book, and I've got that book, and it's not a thin book, folks. It is a thick book with a lot of great information, a lot of facts. How does somebody get that?
You can go to our website, massresistance.org. We also have a separate website, health hazards of homosexuality.info, but massresistance.org, of course, is a lot easier to access. We advertise the purchase of the book. You can find it right there on the website. I'm sending you the links right now, BJ, so that you can share them with your audience.
Okay, I think we've got one of them up there. Okay, very good. Very
no
good.
problem.
We'll put those up. Mr. Anderson, if you can capture them. Arthur, you amaze me with the success that you've had, because you're really, really swimming upstream.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, you're going against a lot of forces, and we mentioned the press. I mean, everything you do is going to be negative in the press. It's going to be hurting somebody, or you're going to be denying somebody this or denying somebody that.
Let me step into that right now. Yeah, please. You characterized it very well. What the media likes to say, we're hurting people. No, the truth is that they are hurting people by normalizing a perversion, by promoting a lie, by manifesting and enabling physical, natural, psychological travesties. They are the ones that are committing harm. But mass resistance has never shied away from the fight, and we have won these fights. We've actually pushed back on many reporters. We have forced them to retract defamatory statements. They've made numerous references to the hate group from Alabama, the Southern Poverty Law Center. And we have pushed back on reporters pointing out all the dishonesty, all the defamation from that hate group. And so newspapers, they retract those statements. The entire SoCal News Group, which supervises a large number of newspapers in Southern California, they no longer reference the SPLC, in part because I showed them how dishonest they are and how destructive they are. And thank God for Trump, his new FBI director is taking away all of these hate groups that have been fomenting racism and promote homosexuality as a civil right. The Anti-Defamation League and now the SPLC, they're both getting removed as resources by the FBI. This is a big win for us because look what happened to Charlie Kirk. He was assassinated by a trans militant. And this is in part because of the defamation he endured from the Southern Poverty Law Center. They literally put Turning Point USA on the hate map. Everybody they disagree with is Hitler. And that's an irony. And I often don't do this. This isn't a book that we publish, but it's a book that is published by one of our big supporters. Dr. Scott Lively wrote an incredible book, The Pink Swastika, in which he details extensively.
Yes.
Nazis were homosexuals. They were homosexual militants. They were trans militants. One of the often frequent stories we hear is about the first books that the Nazis burned was Magnus Hirschfeld's Institute of Sex Research. What people don't talk about is they didn't target Hirschfeld because he was a deviant or a degenerate. They only targeted him because he had all the dirt on the Nazis, because they had been his clients. Nobody wants to talk about that part. Why? Because nobody wants to go after the bigger issue, which is that homosexuality is a fascist, corrupting, anti-life agenda. It is militant to its core. LGBT lobbyists are fascists. And you see this not just from the relentless protesting, the cancel culture, but even the murders that they've perpetrated, the assassinations you see. This is becoming an ongoing problem. Back again, I mentioned the assassination of Charlie Kirk. God bless him. His impact, his influence has not ceased. He actually began to toughen up his stance, opposing homosexuality and transgenderism as well. So I applauded him for that in the final year of his ministry. And this is what mass resistance, though, has been doing since the beginning. We have pointed out the militancy of this agenda, how we have to say no to it, how we have to stop this. Even in California, we've removed pride flags from city government. We have gotten sex ed curricula removed from public schools, and we have no sign of stopping. We recently shut down a drag queen program in Oklahoma. This is a new vista, if you will, that mass resistance is pushing. We're going after the schools full bore. We want to get rid of all of the garbage in the schools. It's not enough to teach parents to take their kids out. We want to get rid of everything within. There's many parents who still cannot homeschool their children. So they do have to go to the local school. They can't afford private school. We need to get all of the perverse indoctrination out of the public schools. We need to have higher standards restored in our public education systems. And that's what we're working on in Redlands. We have people that we're connecting with in North San Diego County. We are also working with people in Wisconsin. We were even able to help some activists in Eastern North Carolina. They were dealing specifically with library issues. We haven't given up on going after libraries, but libraries are a voluntary institution ultimately. Kids don't have to go to them. Parents don't have to take their kids to libraries. But schooling is still a mandate. There has to be some education for a child, and much of the time the kids are going to a public school to get it. I'm kind of jumping ahead of you a little bit. I think
we're gonna take a break here shortly. When we come back from the break, Betty has a question for you, and I have a comment for our audience. Homeschooling. If you think you can't, or you think you can, you're right. But if you don't try, you're wrong. BJ Edwards along, Mr. Anderson. This is your last call. We'll be back with Arthur Schafer from Mass Resistance. Love it, love it, love it.
People are absolutely being led astray already, and this is just the beginning. How much worse do you think this is going to get? It's going to get to the point where people are literally not going to be able to trust anything that they see on a screen at all. And that's a scary thing, is when you don't believe anything that you see. So I want to share with you this next video real quick, but just understand this isn't about technology. It's about deception. And Jesus Christ, our Lord, even told us that these false signs and wonders were going to increase until the day of the Lord draws near. But watch this. I want to share this with you now of how this looks in real time.
Friends, listen, what you're seeing right now is crazy. We are crossing a line in human history where the boundary between reality and fiction is vanishing. And this is not a Hollywood billion-dollar high-production studio. This is open source. This is from your computer, a click of a button, and most people will not be able to even tell the difference now. So be safe out there, question what you see, verify what you believe, and follow who must stay ahead of the curve.
faith, discussion, and so much more. Last Call with BJ Edwards.
And I am the real BJ Edwards, and this is the real Arthur Schaper. And I'm going to bring Betty, and Betty has a question or comment. Go ahead, Betty.
Hey, yeah, have your discernment up about that AI, that's for sure. And my hat goes off to you, Arthur, for what you're doing. My question is, are you aware of the bill 465 that California was coming out with, where anyone could pick up a child from school without the parents' consent? And it's that our schools are mainly, and our school, mainly unions, public schools, promote and supports homosexual, LED grooming, drag queens, child trafficking, and even want to destroy our kids with a bioweapon called a vaccine. So I was just wondering if, since you said San Diego, if you have been involved with that and did it go through?
Thanks, Betty.
The bill is 495. I am very much aware of it. It would allow for just a basic one-page affidavit and a signature. The bill passed the state legislature. We're waiting for Governor Newsom to decide whether he'll sign or veto. I suspect, I don't know, I'm 49-51 confident he'll probably veto it. The only reason why is because he wants to run for president and he wants to appear more moderate and not as crazy as the legislature so he can appeal to Rust Belt states. So if you live in a blue state with a blue governor, tell him to run for president. That'll kill some of the worst policies, I promise you. But that's my anticipation. I have been involved somewhat in that fight. I was involved in, I sent a call to action to many of our California mass resistance activists to contact their legislator, to contact the governor, to stop this. California right now is not a representative system. It's the epitome of oligarchy. It's not like Ohio, where a state rep maybe has 50,000 constituents, which is reasonable. A state assemblyman in California represents 500,000. That is not the representative government our framers ever intended. Article the first was not freedom of speech, but it was minimal representation. A congressman would only represent 50,000 people. That did not pass, as we can see. That's another discussion for another day. But we have oligarchy in California. What may have to start happening is what the Bakersfield Union High School District recently passed. They declared we're not going to allow boys and girls sports. They just defied the governor and said we're going to apply the Title IX statutes as interpreted by the federal government. We're not allowing men and women's sports. I think that's the mission we want to start passing, or the movement we want to start implementing throughout the state of California and across the country. School districts need to put their kids first, not bureaucrats, not politicians, and certainly not LGBT bigots who want to abuse kids in the name of normalizing their perversion and making themselves to be the good guys.
Yes. And I want to say one thing, appeal to heaven, John Diamond's flag. I say that little prayer a lot.
Amen. And that goes right back to, it kind of ties in with my point about the school districts. When your government is violating your rights, you appeal to heaven. That's literally what John Locke writes in his second treatise of government. Our rights come from God, not from the government. This is an essential foundational doctrine for the American experiment. And LGBT militants are, of course, opposed to this. They don't believe that we're fashioned in the image of God. They think that we're just animals and that we should just engage in whatever feelings or behaviors we want to. They love using that ridiculous argument. Well, animals engage in homosexual conduct. Isn't it okay for human beings to do it? And my answer, maybe I've said this before, but I'll share it with your audience so that they can use it in their arsenal. Human beings treat animals humanely. It's an ethical distinction. We don't treat animals like animals. If we did, we just wipe them out. In the same wise, we don't look to animals for ethical standards. Just as we treat animals humanely, we ought to treat human beings humanely. And one way is that you don't abuse a man as if he's a woman. And a woman should not abuse another woman as if she's a man.
I tell you what, you'll get more flack if you do an abortion to a dog than a child, which is sad.
Ooh, great point. Thanks, Betty.
It's a serious problem in our society, for sure. Thank you, Betty.
We have great listeners here, and they are doers. Anyone that you speak with is going to be a doer. Speaking of doers, When when you engage in this war against insanity, and it's all over the place in different flavors, you have to be, well, I don't want to say that word, but why would anyone know getting into this, number one, that they're a minority, that they are going to be swimming upstream, and the water you're swimming in doesn't smell very good, by the way, and you're going to lose family, you're going to lose friends, you're going to lose associates. So with that in mind, Art, why in God's name did you ever get into this? And when did you get into it?
I'm happy to report that I haven't lost a lot of friends and family. In fact, a lot of friends have become stronger friends. They really do appreciate that I speak boldly on this. Quick story, a friend of mine, also named Arthur, invited me to his celebration. He had achieved his citizenship. That was a day about him, not about anybody else, and he deserved it so. But he took me privately aside and said, Arthur, I need to talk to you. I am so grateful that you stand up so boldly against this LGBT perversion. He used more colorful language, as you can imagine, but I'm keeping your audience in mind. And he says, everybody else has caved on this. And this was a very much a MAGA group. Make America Great Again loves Trump. It is somewhat disappointing, especially in California. You have a lot of MAGA activists who are accommodating to homosexuality, a gay Republican or gay conservative, which is a misnomer. It's a non sequitur, and we really shouldn't back down on this. It's not every California conservative, Republican, or MAGA activist is like that. I'm happy to report. But my point is, I haven't lost many friends or family. And if I've lost anybody who was a friend, they weren't much of a friend to begin with. I don't see this as an uphill stream anymore. I love the analogy that Brian Kamaker, the president of our organization, loves to use. This whole homosexual transgender tyranny, it's a house of cards. The Soviet Union collapsed with a little bit of perestroika and glasnost, openness, trade. Russians got the experience that the West was actually doing very well, and communism collapsed pretty quickly. And the same is true as the lies of this whole LGBT cult fall apart. That gives me great hope, especially with the Childs versus Salazar case. When restorative therapy is restored as a viable therapy in every state in the union, more people will be able to get out of these destructive habits, behaviors, and dishonesties. You're going to see psychological restoration in this country because, as you pointed out, it's insanity, it's a mental illness, or it's an emotional disturbance. These are men and women who have been abused, neglected. They've the victim of shame, abuse, neglect, confusion, or molestation. No set of behaviors, no so-called civil right should be based on trauma. And we have to take a stand against it. So there's always been a righteousness in the cause. I was a contributor to a website in Rhode Island. They canceled me because they didn't like my stances on homosexuality and transgenderism. That website is gone. I'm still thriving. I know that with Prop 8, a number of high-profile people donated to it, including the CEO for Mozilla Firefox. It was an internet website company. Well, he ended up getting fired because he took a stand for natural marriage. But that same CEO was able to find work somewhere else, and Mozilla Firefox disappeared. When you stand for truth, you will stand for the long term. Truth does win out. Evil does not survive, and we are seeing that happening in the world. The only issue, I think, is that among conservatives, Republicans, right-leaning activists, we have to have the courage to speak against the entire agenda. And a lot of activists want to accommodate the Rick Greddells of the world, or the so-called log cabin Republicans, even though this is a lot of fifth column infiltration. And I think it is a form of cultural Marxism that we shouldn't tolerate. I think that Donald Trump is probably the tipping point. I know that he's put some out homosexuals in his cabinet, but you either can't tell or they actively undermine the agenda. So I'm fine with it. Because God uses the worst of us to accomplish his best. And I see that happening. No more Pride Month, no more Harvey Milk on a ship, no more LGBT protections in federal government. All the LGBT promotionalism via USAID and other government agencies is gone. This is exactly what I voted for. It's moving full speed ahead. I certainly hope that President Trump will have the courage to support the overturning of Obergefell. We'll see what happens. I understand people were upset. the repeal of Roe v. Wade opened up a floodgate of recrimination. You had states pushing those horrific abortion amendments, including Ohio, sadly. But the issue always comes back to you have to tell the truth. And pro-family and pro-life activists must not shy away from telling the gritty, the bitter, ugly, gritty realities of what homosexuality is, back to our book, or what abortion really is. It is the vile termination, the mutilation, the murder of an innocent life. We could say homosexuality is the mutilation of family, the mutilation of healthy sexuality. These are things that should not be tolerated, and we shouldn't care what corporate media has to say about it. I don't feel like I'm swimming upstream. I feel like the stream is now starting to push our way. I really do feel that. People are seeing 10 years after Obergefell, they're seeing the damage to children. They're seeing the damage to the public space, the public square, public health. People are fed up with the abuse of tyranny, this agenda being shoved down our throats. I have friends of mine in Hermosa Beach, California, which is a pretty liberal enclave in a liberal county. And they've contacted me and say, is there anything we could do to stop the drag queens coming here? They're fed up with it. You had Hermosa Beach residents who don't want the lifeguard tower painted LGBT colors. Everybody is starting to speak out against this. So no, I don't feel like I'm swimming upstream. I feel that the current's going our way now, little by little.
So you're saying we can?
Yes, we can.
Really?
Bermuda, that's the first country that absolutely reversed same-sex marriage. The courts forced it down on the country. The parliament said, forget it, we're not going to comply, and they reversed it. It can happen. I envision a world where even in the West, there will be an aggressive response to reverse the destruction wrought by this whole LGBT cult. Marine Le Pen, I know she's not the standard bearer for her party anymore, but she was open to reversing same-sex marriage in France. The Vox party in Spain is open to this discussion. Nigel Farage warned early on about normalizing same-sex marriage, although I know the biggest pressing issue in the United Kingdom is the migration crisis. But you're in Eastern Europe, people like Viktor Orban, they have clearly defined marriage as a man and a woman, and that a father is a male, a mother is a female, that there are two sexes. I think it was in Slovakia, they passed a constitutional amendment defining the two sexes. There is movement in our direction across the world.
We're going to take a break shortly. By the way, Russia last year declared a natural family month. Natural family year, I'm sorry, a natural family year. Russia and Israel, and we can talk about this after the break. Israel, as I understand it, is probably the number one celebrant of the homosexual lifestyle, allowing it, encouraging it. Interesting. Let's take a break, Mr. Anderson. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Arthur Schaper, and we'll bring on Martin to maybe have a question or comment or two.
Please.
I used to believe everything I'd see on the news, but that's before I discovered a brain.
A brain is meant for everyday use. Those living with moderate to severe stupidity have seen immediate improvement in common sense with a brain.
I thought the government had my best interests at heart, and then a friend told me about a brain.
Talk to your doctor about what news sources you obey. A brain may also lower your desire to take life-altering advice from celebrities.
Getting lectured about my carbon footprint from people with 3 private jets used to make sense. But thanks to a brain, now I can think for myself every day. When my disregard for 3rd grade biology began to flare up, I knew it was time for a brain.
Do not try a brain if you're allergic to a brain. Common side effects may include accountability, discernment, homeschooling your kids, a better understanding of economics, awareness of the stupidity of socialism, and diarrhea.
For tethering yourself to reality, the only no-brainer is choosing a brain. Ask your doctor if a brain is right for you.
For more information, visit tryabrain.com.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
The brain, by the way, is not a vestigial organ, folks.
It's an essential one for sure.
Martin, go ahead.
Yep.
I wanted to show this shirt to my dear brother Arthur. I had this This is a shirt I wear. Arthur, take a look.
Why did
you
Charlie
kill
die?
Charlie? Why did you kill Charlie? God.
Why did you kill Charlie? Excuse me. Yes.
Yeah, it's quite the discussion starter. But I love mass resistance, Arthur. My question here on Last Call with BJ Edwards would be to this, brother, and I can take it off the air. How do we get moms and dads inspired to join mass resistance? Thanks, Arthur.
Great point.
First of all, share with them our website. Second of all, share with them our success stories. Third of all, show them that mass resistance has a process and a strategy of supporting the parents, because the biggest issue is parents face unprecedented assault from regressive LGBT leftists. And that is what intimidates a lot of people. This is why what we did in Redlands is very important. We are building a new movement, not just of organizing people, but fortifying them to know that we have their back. We are training our activists to go after the abusive leftists who support sexual abuse, sexual mutilation of children, pushing pornography in kids in the schools, all under the guise of LGBT tolerance. That is a key element of what mass resistance is invested in. We support you as citizens, whether you have a business, your family, your work. We make sure that you are protected so that you don't lose any of those, that you're able to stand strong, stand tall, and stand your ground. Those are the key elements. Now, how you bring them in, show them our website, show them our successes. Piff, puff, poof.
If I contact mass resistance, what do I expect, Arthur?
You're going to hear from either me or Karen. She's the organization director. We're going to sit down and assess with you what is the situation you want to fight. We're going to provide you with strategies on how to reach out to people in your local community. We want to help you build the team. This is very key. Sometimes we have a team already in place, and sometimes we have to build one. We have to look at even the left. They don't actually have all the pieces in place right away. They had to begin recruiting people in the local areas, and we do the same thing. We look at the model or the processes that the left used. We take them and incorporate them into accomplishing lofty good goals, in contrast to the evil communists and their cultural Marxist minions. Whether you talk about Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky or Dedication to Leadership, we rely on the patterns and the ideas that they communicated and put them to use for good purposes. That's how we train people. That's how we motivate and mobilize people.
Okay. All right, good. It's nice to know that's there. So
Visit
they would
the
go
website, everybody, massresistance.org. I want to jump into this discussion. I think it's very important because you talked about foreign countries. Now, I mentioned quite a few already. I think this is kind of an interesting discussion. It's important we stress natural law and natural right. I was honored. I was invited on a podcast by a journalist in Kazakhstan. So this is a former Soviet republic. Now, something that bothered me a little bit about her presentation is that there was a yearning to go back to Soviet days, because they thought, well, if we brought back the Soviet Union, if we brought back the communistic leadership, we wouldn't have all this LGBT promotion. And I think that's a very dangerous slope. I don't want a crass collective authoritarianism of a different sort. I think that is very important. That's a distinction I don't want to get too bogged down in, because in the United States, the collectivism that's threatening us is the LGBT cult. It is a concern, though, that I see some people in this country wanting to bring back an authoritarianism, a militancy in the state. That's not a good thing. It's very important that we maintain our constitutional republic and that it endures. I think it's understandable. Vladimir Putin is in an Orthodox country. How he maintains the popularity and authority in the country has been appealing to the Orthodox traditions in that country. But rest assured, you couldn't pay me to live in Russia. And I wouldn't want to live under Vladimir Putin. I'm not a Ukraine cheerleader either. I don't really want to get too much into the foreign policy issues. Mass resistance, we've been very effective. We've stuck to our guns on fighting LGBT perversion. I mentioned guns. We're not a Second Amendment movement. We're not an abortion movement, or an anti-abortion movement, rather. We don't fight on those questions. Why? Lots of other groups are speaking to those issues. We're not a ministry. It's not our job to save souls. It's our job to help hold the sword, to be a terror to evildoers and evil works. That's what we're doing. Now, it doesn't mean we dismiss faith. It doesn't mean we dismiss religious sentiment, but that's not our focus. That's not our drive. The way you win this argument is that you have to stick to natural law, natural right, facts and evidence showing how homosexual perversion is exactly that. Transgenderism is a mental illness, and this is the fundamental effort you take to win the fight.
Natural laws.
This is really interesting. I guess, yeah, okay. So there it is. I want to let you keep taking the lead. Continue, please.
If you would, Mr. Anderson. Natural law, the laws of nature and nature's God, if you will.
Amen.
Spiritual and physical, folks.
Yes.
Okay. I mentioned earlier, a child needs a biological mother and father. That's inbred into us. It's part of the software package. Yes. We know the difference between right and wrong. Now we seemingly have a tendency to do the wrong. I want to go ahead and stick my finger in that socket because I have to learn, and you learn when you break a natural law, there will be a negative consequence. It doesn't necessarily happen at that moment, but it does happen. And it is something that you're going to have to overcome and learn by that. But natural laws are very important. When I got into this discussion with a homosexual couple one time, Arthur, they said to me, well, you're trying to beat us over the head with the Bible, and it's your opinion, and our opinion is different. I said, listen, you shouldn't worry about my opinion, and don't worry about the Bible, what the Bible says, okay? What you need to concern yourself with is nature. Deal with it. Good luck. Conversation was over with because they knew what I was talking about. It is not natural for a man to, I can't describe that to another man, but you can use your imagination.
Here's a great word you can use that doesn't offend the censors: violate. A man violating another man. That's what it is, brothers and sisters. Yeah. It's a violation of the body. It's dehumanizing.
It does something.
You know what? I can give you research on this. You have an out openly homosexual therapist. He was in Florida, and he explained that the receptive partner in a man-on-man abuse relationship suffers a whole host of mental health issues and physical issues. Yes. It is a debilitating practice. There are a whole host of problems associated with it. Why would any man allow this to happen? And the same thing is true for women. A woman is not designed to be abused or to be abusive.
Maybe that will help aid you in your thoughts about this, folks.
It's really essential to get to that dynamic. Here I am. I was motivated in part because I knew some of your other guests were talking about books. This was an important resource that we compiled, and we've had people all over the world purchase this book because they don't know how to respond to this agenda. A lot of times, if it's friends, loved ones, even in a conservative household, they always go, well, how does my same-sex marriage hurt you? Why does it even matter? Whatever happened to live and let live? And then you start to break down. It's destructive. It harms. It spreads public health problems, venereal disease. These are issues. And it is, I do not diminish the point that you've made. It's harming the children. And now look what's happened. Children are being trafficked and purchased like commodities. It's like a reintroduction of slavery, that you have perverted men going to conferences and learning how they can adopt children. And what often happens, that this is a growing series of problems. You have these homosexual couples, they get busted abusing, molesting, trafficking out these children for sexual purposes. This is abhorrent. It is so vile. It is so unnatural. And the general public is starting to wake up to it.
Amen. Amen. Arthur Schaper, Mass Resistance. Folks, if you want, I was in sales for decades. And in the sales process, you might have a question or you might have a issue that you don't really know what the answer to it is. Here's how you handle that. You ask a question. If you want to win a debate, you're going to win the debate by asking more questions. Now, you need to be the book that Arthur just brought up there. If you're going to talk to somebody about the homosexual death style, I guess I won't call it a lifestyle.
Oh, good word. There you go.
If you want to handle that conversation, you need to do your research, and you need to do your research, not so you can shove that information down their throat. Okay. That's not the purpose, but so you can ask an intelligent question. And in most cases, the individual you're having a discussion with, you're not going to bring look at what they first hear, they're going to believe, and it's going to take 100 times the information to get that into them. But what you're doing is planting seeds. You're saying to them, you know, you may not be right by just asking a question. You know, where did you hear that? How do you know it's true? But you've got to be educated before you can ask an educated question. But asking question is the key. Asking he who defines a question wins the debate, folks. And that's one thing that if you learn anything from this program today, ask questions, because that's going to get you from childhood through 12 years of high school. You're what? You're asked a question and you oh boy, I have to give an answer, right? You have to give an answer. Once you're asked a question, it's not, you don't think to ask another question. You're going, gosh, how am I going to answer this question? You're programmed to do that. So use that to your advantage, but research before you ask that question. You're going to guide them to where they need to get to, and that's a starting point. But you got to be educated in order to do that, and you got to know what questions to ask. Go ahead, Arthur.
And that's been a big problem. A lot of the arguments that were pro-family were often based on tradition or religion. I'm not knocking both per se, but this was a serious issue that the conservative movement had to grapple with, that society in general didn't really foster or investigate. Traditions become tradition. We just accept it. Well, it's always been just one man and one woman in a marriage. But then the argument ensued, well, why can't two men marry? Why can't I marry the man that I love? And there was nothing besides, well, I just believe, or, well, this is just the way it is. Well, you know, there's that scripture in the Bible, don't remove the ancient landmark. There's a reason why it's there. Those reasons have now become manifest. We see the harms done to children, the harms done to adults. We see the tyranny that was unleashed on the world. Paul Johnson, he was an atheist initially, then he became a Catholic, and he writes about his conversion from atheism to the Christian faith. And he writes in a book, The Quest for God. This was published as far back as 1996, almost 30 years ago. And he lamented the fact that as a young liberal baby boomer, he was all invested in righting the wrongs of the past and promoting civil rights for everybody, including the homosexuals in the United Kingdom. They fought hard to repeal the anti-sodomy statutes in the UK in the late 1960s. But he looked back on that 30 years later and realized that they had unleashed a monster, which has been rapacious and unrelenting and demanding more and more. There was a recent article in The Spectator a few days ago, which pointed out that, you know, the whole gay rights movement is turning on itself, because rather than achieving a goal and disbanding, it has remained militant and tyrannical. But that is the very nature of the agenda, which is what we pro-family activists have warned people from the beginning, and which former liberals like Paul Johnson had to learn the hard way. I've been really pleased. I've talked to younger people, millennials and even Gen Z. They used to mock Christians or the hard right, you know, Bible thumping fundamentalists because they were opposed to normalizing homosexuality and transgenderism and the like. But now they see the drag queens. Now they see the perverse sex ed curricula in the public schools. They see the persecution of churches, charities, and small businesses. And I don't hold back. I say to every one of them, told you so. And now they're waking up to this. And that's why, going back to a previous question you had asked, why I have great hope and opportunity in seeing this whole agenda collapsing. I am very confident. I'm certainly more confident. When it comes to the Supreme Court or any event in human history, you can't have 100% assurance. That's just the way it is. But I'm much more confident now than I was 5 years ago or even 10 years ago.
Great. Mr. Anderson?
We're coming up on a break, and I'm going to show a short video. It might be offensive to a lot of people, so I want to give them a warning ahead of time. I'm only bringing it up because the topic at hand about the perversion and the current discussion about TikTok and what's going on with that and what our youth are doing and they're entertained by. It's rather sickening to me. I hate to have to, well, I don't have to show it, but I hate to show it because this is a reality that people blink at now and find humorous. So we'll go to break and come back and finish the show.
Arthur Schaper, massresistance.org, folks.
So There's about 0.1% of content on TikTok that's worth watching. Here is that 0.1%. It's a new challenge that guys are doing with girls. Seems like the girls like it. Well, she didn't.
Faith, discussion, and so much more. Last Call with BJ Edwards.
Did I tell you, Arthur, I was looking for a new producer? Here's a question. Can't we all just get along? There's the question, folks. Art Schaper, Mass Resistance. Real quickly, we're going to have to end this shortly. I know you got to get out of here, and we do too. Number one, primary job right now, primary opportunity right now, and how can we help you, sir?
Visit our website. We always appreciate donations. We're looking to build more chapters across the country and around the world. We are very intent on getting our resolution against Obergefell submitted in as many state legislatures as possible. We have a couple of states that are preparing for next year. Wherever it was submitted and it didn't pass or it didn't move forward, this year we're going to try again. In Oklahoma, very happy to share our resolution received 25 co-sponsors. And unfortunately, the leadership sat on it. They had the power to prevent its movement to the floor, but we're hoping for better reception next year. The Supreme Court is interested in a case that may overturn Obergefell, so that makes our resolution more pertinent. Ohio, we've had some rough waters there. Yeah. One legislator said, I agree with you, but this is not the right time. I think there are some fears that it's going to open up another constitutional amendment fight with the repeal or overturning of Obergefell, and I'm fine with that. I think that we need to start having these fights. The Supreme Court had no right to redefine a fundamental institution, and pro-family and pro-life forces have to have the courage to define truthfully these matters and explain explicitly the dangers and destruction that's wrought by normalizing same-sex marriage, abortion, and other moral calamities.
Arthur, I don't know whether you're aware of it or not, but in Ohio, yeah, it's an interesting state, especially with our current governor, who gratefully is not going to be coming back.
May I ask really quickly, what do you think of Vivek? CC seems to be the front runner, if you don't mind my asking. I know I'm kind of taking off topic just a little bit. What do you think of Mr. Ramaswamy?
Okay, not crazy about him. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's some things that concern me.
I will give him 5 minutes of credit because during the primary, he had the courage to point out the hypocrisy of saying you can't change your orientation, but you can change your sex. I am glad he was willing to open that discussion up. I don't think that there's a character that's invested in the fight. I think that he's just good at starting the discussion because it will generate attention. Yep. But I say take advantage of it. I say build on that. I mean, presuming he's he becomes the nominee in the Republican ticket. I think that the most important thing that we as citizens must remember is that we drive the agenda. I supported Ron DeSantis in the primary last year, in part because he had a much better stance on fighting LGBT perversion. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, Trump is doing a much better job fighting LGBT perversion. So you may not get the one you want, but you choose the one you like and you force the nominee to go your way. So that would be my invitation to all.
No, I don't disagree with you, and that's good. That's good advice. In Ohio, there's a bill proposed to celebrate Natural Family Month from Mother's Day through Father's Day.
Sure.
This can be a foundation for the state of Ohio and put a light for the state of Ohio. The first week would be Mother's Day week, and then Children's Week, Grandparents Week, Extended Family Week, and then on Father's Day week. You may have a separate week in there for aunts and uncles. But it celebrates the natural family. And the natural family is one biologically born man, father, one, I have to say that now too, one biologically born woman, mother, in a lifelong committed monogamous relationship with their children. I've been divorced, okay? 50% of the people out there have been divorced. 50% of children aren't living with their biological parents. This has to stop, okay? The laws of nature and nature's God is the bond that holds all nations together. When not properly applied or simply ignored, nations quickly become unglued. It happened in Rome and Greece. Look at the sexual perversion, the lack of emphasis on family. Boom, they're gone. And we're headed that way unless we change it. Sorry, I got a little off subject, but Ohio is
No, you did not get off subject. I appreciate you bringing that up. And I want to minister to you briefly. God does not hate divorced people. He hates divorce, but not divorced people. Yes. And I will add to this. I'm committed to this. This isn't mass resistance wheelhouse specifically because it's LGBT that has militantly unleashed all this perversion. But the no fault divorce corruption needs to be repealed. Texas has started that discussion. That's important too. People should not be able to end a marriage like ripping a piece of paper. That should never happen. I believe that if it's not adultery, then y'all got to figure it out. That's what marriage is about. And that's the way it is, natural right wise. Yep. So I appreciate you bringing that up. It is germane to this whole discussion. Absolutely.
Marriage is a commitment, by the way. No fault divorce. You have one foot out the door before they ever get in the door.
That's it.
And it's yeah. I mean, it's, well, he passed gas during whatever. Okay. So I'm out of here. And you can't defend yourself. You cannot defend yourself.
Yeah.
No fault means that the laws are okay. Here's an objection. Here's my response. You can't have that. And no fault divorce is absolutely positively insane.
And you can imagine LGBT militants are all in on this. In fact, when Obergefell was rendered, you had LGBT activists who actually complained because they don't want to normalize marriage at all. They want to undermine all sexual mores. And I'll never forget that. And that's always the case. LGBT militants, you have people who think they're accommodating this agenda and they feed the alligator and they realize they'll never be happy. The same thing happened even in North Carolina when they repealed the law, I think it was SB 2, that kept men and women in separate spaces. That was repealed after 3 years, and the LGBT activists screamed and yelled anyway. The same thing happened in Singapore when the anti-sodomy statutes were unwisely repealed. They complained, they screamed, they yelled, because what they want at the end of the day is an unlimited affirmation, which will never happen. Even if the whole world put up rainbows every single day and every day was LGBT Pride Day, they would still be at war with the laws of nature and nature's God. The trauma, abuse, and pain that they're trying to overcome or normalize will never be assuaged. It will always be a destruction. And that's why we have to say, no, we will not celebrate this. We are going to say no to this.
They can't change nature. They cannot change nature. I know you got to get going. Any closing remarks you want to leave us with, Arthur, or get out of here?
You do a great job. I appreciate your fight. I respectfully ask, this Natural Family Month is a worthwhile proposal. And I ask for your help and your audience's help to augment the fight. Let's get a resolution against Obergefell. We want a specific statement that, it's not just that natural marriage is good, but two men abusing each other is bad. We have to show that we're against this. It's okay to be against a corruption. I'm not saying you're not when you put out the Natural Family Month resolution. Yep. I know you've got a lot of great contacts. That's what we're looking for in Ohio. We want to do this in Indiana. We've got a guy in Michigan of all places, which is, I think, the most liberal of the Rust Belt states. He took it up. Of course, it's sitting in a committee right now, but he was willing to take the stand, and he's still doing very well as far as his reelection chances are concerned. So thank you for having me on. Visit our website, massresistance.org. We look forward to helping any parent, any other citizen who wants to fight this agenda and win.
It's always a pleasure. Arthur Schaper, God bless you, brother. Godspeed. Now get back to work. Thank you very much. Mr. Anderson, I just love the people we get to talk with. It's just, these are incredible souls, spiritual giants. I'm sorry, they are. They are because they've been in the battle and they've taken the slings and the arrows and they've gotten up and go, okay, next. And they do it again. They get up again. And they say next. Just absolutely incredible. I hope our new listeners enjoy the program today and learn something. We're hoping that, but more importantly, please do something. If you see a need, that's your calling, folks. Mr. Anderson, go ahead.
Oh, I think we had a great show. I think we had some excellent guests, and we're hitting on valid topics, and I appreciated everybody's effort this morning. First hour, second hour, excellent. And I guess we're close to having to close out the show, so I'm going to play a short video, and we'll catch you next Saturday.
Right.
Same time, same station.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
You folks out there need to listen to me, because you need to be listening to BJ in the last call. Because BJ and Mr. Anderson are trying to save America. Because without change, America's going to fall. See, truth is the only thing that's going to save us. And it's being censored on many platforms. Because truth sees a threat to their agenda. Truth will bring about reforms. Just remember the words Jesus said. Know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And that applies to all who will believe. And it sure made a transformation in me. Truth will transform anyone who will believe. Because, see, truth will make a change in your heart. I mean, it'll open blind eyes so you can see. It won't make you perfect, but now it's a start. And you start tuning in on Saturday mornings. You pay attention to what BJ has to say. Then you figure out how you can make a difference. Because you can help America see a brighter day. Now, I'm expecting you to educate yourself and learn some truth. I don't want to hear there's nothing I can do. Your responsibility is to learn truth and then you to share it. Because God's keeping his eye on you. God expects you to fight for the country he gave you. So get up. Let's get to work. We'll help you and we'll pray for you. But just don't you be a lazy jerk.
Join us next week for Last Call with BJ Edwards.